The other way that we balance acceptance and change is literally through acceptance and change strategies, right? So what are our change strategies? I'm doing a lot of basic problem solving with Sarah. When it comes to school, we're looking at like, what are the contingencies that are keeping you home? Are there variables we can play around with? We set up a reinforcement system with her and her mom that she gets access to more privileges based on school attendance, right? So we're doing a lot of basic problem solving. We're also working on building skills, right? So a lot of it is skill building in DBT because a lot of these skills are not available to these people. They don't have them. So Sarah has some skill deficits that we're working on. I would say a very big piece of the puzzle is exposure, right? I think when people think of exposure, like exposure response prevention, we think more of like exposing people to spiders or snakes or dogs or those things that they're scared of. And for people with borderline, they're like that bull that's become a cow. Sarah has spent her life avoiding emotions because her experience with emotions are very challenging. And so her goal is to avoid feelings, especially around shame and guilt. And so we have to work very hard to do things like mindfulness as a wave. The last thing that we work on are those cognitions, so really working on either creating wise mind statements for a thought or just trying to learn how to have a different relationship with those thoughts, right? So remembering the goal is to try to create that cognitive flexibility, right? Having to create space for all possibilities, practicing checking the facts, right? So we don't get caught up in some of the thoughts that are showing up. So oftentimes with Sarah, we'll kind of make these assumptions based on these thoughts. And I will say to her, what do the facts say? If 100% of people were in the room, would they agree? Right? And people kind of get annoyed with that. They'll push back like, well, we don't know, but I know. And I'm like, well, do you know? Like, it might be possible. You may be right. I don't know. You may be wrong. And we don't know. So we don't ever want to base a solution when we're problem solving on something that's not factual, right? So really trying to learn how to have a different relationship with those thoughts. The flip side of problem solving is acceptance. And something that I think you can't do enough with somebody is validation, right? We want to make sure that they're feeling like we see them and we understand them. And we're balancing that with validating them and the feeling and not necessarily the behavior at times. So some examples of a validation would be being awake and listening, right? Being mindful of how you're showing up in the room and how they're showing up in the room. So an example of that might be like, I might say to Sarah, I noticed that you look down when you talk about some of your sexual experiences. Can you tell me more about that? Like, I'm being mindful of that. I noticed that when we talk about these topics, your body language is literally as close as to the door as I can see, right? Kind of being mindful of like, I see you, I see the shame, or I see the avoidance. I see you, and do you see you? So that it's like you're communicating enough. You don't have to communicate through these bigger maladaptive behaviors. You can communicate just through your body, and I see you. Providing accurate reflections, again, not new to DBT and very important. So it sounds like you experience hurt when your boyfriend avoids you in public. It sounds like that's very hurtful for you, right? So I'm reflecting back what she's saying to me, either in exact words or similar words. I do some mind reading, I think that's very helpful for people. And I think when you do mind reading, you also have to accept you could be wrong. And so being willing, if somebody says no, to be like, okay, what about this? Or what about this? So trying to be accurate with reading your minds while also being accepting that we might have missed something. So with Sarah, I might say something like, if you are hurting yourself, you are literally cutting yourself, that must be incredibly painful, whatever you're experiencing. And or maybe the only tool like you feel like you have, that you literally have to hurt your body to get your needs met. That must be so incredibly painful. Right? Like, she's not exactly saying that, but that's what I'm picking up. And I want her to know I see you, and that must be really hard. And I want to get to a place for you where you don't feel like you have to hurt yourself to get your needs met. Right? So trying to read her mind, thinking that that's maybe the place she wants to go to in therapy. Another important level of validation is understanding someone's learning history, right? So oftentimes people might say, I overreacted. I don't know why I reacted that way. And I will say to them, like, wait a minute, this makes total sense, like, given your history. Like, it makes sense that, like, when somebody calls you a name, even jokingly, that might be really hard for you because so many people have called you terrible names. That makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. It was hard to sit at the volleyball game because that's such a huge part of your identity, to have to sit there and watch and not participate. That sounds so challenging, right? So based on what I know about Sarah, I'm validating her. And that's so cool because they're like, you see me, you know me well enough to know my history and why that would be problematic for me. And then the other piece, especially for adolescents and someone like Sarah, to normalize some things because they're so used to being told, Sarah's so used to being told that she's wrong. And I think it's so important to be like, anybody would feel that way in that situation. Like, you went on a school trip and you had never been to Virginia before. That sounds scary. You didn't know what to do. You've never been on a bus before, whatever it is. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. So that is how I would balance kind of that acceptance and change, right? And even in a statement, I'm doing that where I am practicing acceptance and encouraging change of self-harm.